Hey and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to show you how you do this cool button-up dress. Just a short disclaimer, I'm not a professional sewer, I just do it for fun. And I also did this dress as a doll version because I already sewed it before, just in case you're wondering why this is so little. So let's get right into the video. For the dress you are going to need about 3 meters long and 1.5 meters wide fabric. Keep in mind to be extra careful with the pattern in case your fabric is different from both sides. You're also going to need your pattern pieces. Obviously I had sleeves, a front piece and a back piece. Then you're also going to need something to cut, maybe a rotary cutter or just a normal scissors. Also, you're going to need something to mark on your fabric with, as well as something to measure, for example, a ruler. Here's a time lapse of me just cutting out all the pieces that I need from my fabric, maybe iron it before. In my case it wasn't super important because it was just for a doll dress, but that would probably be a good tip. Now here there comes the important part. As you can see, my fabric looks exactly the same from both sides, but in case your fabric has a beautiful and a less beautiful side, make sure to flip over your front pattern piece so that you have a right as well as a left beautiful front. As you can see, my sleeve piece doesn't look normal. That's because I wanted it to be super wide and flowy. What is important if you want to do that as well, make sure to measure that curve from the armhole. It has to be the same length as the curve from the sleeve. Here's how you do that. The sides left and right, I'm showing it right here, are depending on how long you want your sleeve to be. Then cut to the middle point of the curve and straighten up the curve. Just make sure that the length doesn't change. The straighter your curve is, the wider your sleeve is going to be in the end. I didn't show you how I cut this full circle skirt that we are going to need for our dress, but it's actually quite easy. Just type in circle skirt calculator and then there are going to be many pages. There you are going to type in your waist measurements as well as how long you want your skirt to be, and then they will calculate the measurements like your radius and so on. So what I'm doing here is to fold one of the half circle skirts in half, and then you could also measure it out, by the way, but I'm just a bit lazy, and then cut along this line because we want to attach some fabric as well as buttons here, and obviously we just need to cut this half circle skirt because you don't want any buttons on your back side. And these are now the 3 pieces of the full circle skirt that you're going to need. Now we want to calculate how long our fabric pieces for the buttons need to be. Therefore, take the front piece as well as 1/4 skirt piece and measure from the top to the bottom. Then add some seam allowance and that's it. Okay, now let's cut out the fabric pieces for the buttons. We already know how long we want them to be, and now it depends on you. So here's an example. I wanted my straps to be 2 centimeters, and since we are going to fold it in half, we need 4 centimeters plus seam allowance, which is an extra 2 centimeters. That leads us to 6 centimeters per strap, so that you need 12 in total for 2 straps of your fabric. Finally, we're going to cut out the last pieces. Those are the linings for the front. You need 2 of them and just 1 lining for the back. Since my explanation here wasn't very helpful, I think here's another video of me doing it. A short disclaimer, that's the real dress, so don't wonder about the size. So what I'm doing here is to show you that you should iron your piece, because then it lays flat and nicely, and then you need to lay it on a piece of fabric and mark exactly the curve that the dress or the front piece has. Also keep in mind to add seam allowance at the start as well as at the end of the curve, because you also need to attach it to the back lining as I'm showing right here, and in the front you need to fold it twice so that you have a nice ending. Now I do cut out the lining. My linings are usually around about 4 to 5 centimeters wide. You could also make it wider, but I wouldn't recommend to make it shorter, because if your lining is like 2 centimeters wide, it could flip over and that would be super annoying. Just a quick reminder, obviously that's not the only lining, because you're also going to need the second front piece lining and the back lining, but I just wanted to show you the method how I do it. If you did cut out all the lining pieces, then you are just going to attach them, for example with needles, on your front piece and sew along with the straight stitch. Just a quick tip, I would recommend to do the linings at the end of your project, because in my case I also changed the curve a little bit so that you are on the safe side if you do it at the end of your project. What you now should have is 2 sleeves as well as 2 pieces for the buttons, 2 front pieces, 1 back piece, 2 times the quarter circle skirt as well as the half circle skirt. Just in case someone is wondering, the pattern is not available anywhere. I did it by myself by using a shirt to drape the back and the front pieces as well as the sleeves, and I also explained earlier on that you don't really need a pattern for making the skirt. Now I'm going to iron my pieces and then we can finally start to sew. Let's start with sewing the skirt, and therefore line up the quarter skirt pieces with the half skirt piece, pin them together and sew along this line right here. We also start to attach the front pieces to the back piece by lining them up right sides together. That means that the beautiful sides are touching, or rather facing each other. Keep in mind to do this for every single seam. Here I sew the shoulder seam with a straight stitch, which I'm using for every single seam in the whole video. Also make sure to backstitch every time that you're doing a seam, at the beginning as well as at the end of the seam. Those are the results, and by the way, my dress actually does have some pockets, so in case you also want to have some, then you need to attach it to the skirt. If you don't know how to do that, don't worry, there are a lot of good tutorials on YouTube and it's actually not that complicated. Now let's sew on the sleeves to the top. Therefore, flip the top open so that you have the whole curve, and then we are going to see where the middle of the sleeve is. Therefore, fold the sleeve in half and then just mark it, or take a needle to mark the middle of the sleeve. This part you are going to pin to the shoulder seam. And now, as you can see, they are right sides facing, and I'm pinning along this curve as shown here. We're also going to do this for the other side, and then sew along this line with a straight stitch. This is how your shirt should look so far. Now we are going to flip the shirt over so that the right sides are facing each other, and then we're going to close the side seams as well as the seams of the sleeves. And therefore make sure that everything lines up perfectly, and then pin and sew along those lines with a straight stitch. This is the outcome now, and as you can see right here and in the back, I did a dart. You could also do the dart at the front, or just like 2 darts at the back. That's depending on how you want your shirt to look in the end. But why did I do that? We need to line up the skirt with the shirt now, and therefore the part of the back piece must be as long as the back skirt. Here you can see it lines up perfectly because we want our side seams to line up. And since my front pieces are also too long, you either cut them off or do a dart. Now let's attach the skirt to the shirt by pinning them right sides together along the whole line, and then sew along that line with a straight stitch. Okay, this is our dress so far. So now we are going to attach the fabric pieces for the buttons. What you're going to do is to iron your fabric pieces in half, as we said earlier on, and then you're going to attach them right sides facing with the raw edges to one side. So in my case the raw edges are facing to the right side, and then you are going to pin it and sew it in place on both sides. Here is how it looks now. I also did a top stitch, and now you're going to hem all the raw edges and add the lining, of course, and then you're basically done. So I hope you had a lot of fun watching this video, and now enjoy the final reveal. bye.